Now you know the gist of me. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. I happen to be in Nashville today, and it's actually very sunny and very nice and very cool, by the way. So I am enjoying the features of cool weather where you guys are probably still down there hot and sweaty. And I have a really cool guest in the house today. Mike, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us what you do at the city of Northport.
Thanks, John. Mike Vuolo. I am the Assistant Utilities Director. I've been with the city for 9 years, and I've been in the utility industry for 21 years, right in this region with governmental agencies the whole 21 years.
So what's going on with our infrastructure here in Northport?
Well, the new item that just came in recently, actually last week we did a ribbon cutting, was our new water treatment plant in Welling Park, which is a 2 million gallon a day RO facility, which is expandable up to 5 million gallons. This is just, when you're the fastest growing city in the nation, second fastest, excuse me, these infrastructures that you got to keep up. You got to keep up with the demand and supply of water, and it's definitely a challenge. But I think city of Northport is geared up for accepting that challenge and meeting those goals of expanding the utility and just making sure we have enough water available for everybody.
We've had this push out here for water and sewer where everybody thinks, I think they jumped the gun a little early because it takes funding to do all these things. But Welland Park is a little different because that's a infrastructure that was designed to have the water treatment plant put in versus well and septic, correct?
That is correct. It was part of the developer agreement that once they hit so many connections, they would supply a wastewater plant and a water treatment plant. Wastewater plant came online about 2 years ago, and that's been operating, doing very well. And like I said, just actually May 23rd, we took over the operations of the water treatment plant. We just been working through some of the hiccups in our normal startups, that we're trying to work through. But the ribbon cutting we had was actually very successful. It was a great turnout. We had a lot of people there, which was great to see everybody.
Well, how do we control the quality of the water? Can you talk about, especially with the new treatment plant, but is there a distinct difference between the two plants and as far as the quality of the water goes?
No, there's not a big difference. We have an RO facility at our existing plant at the Myakkahatchee treatment plant. And then, so we're using the same chemical makeup that in both facilities. So the Myakkahatchee treatment plant is a surface water plant and an RO plant, but we're able to blend those waters together, and we can send water in from the plant that was just built in Welland Park back to the plant that's here off of Northport Boulevard, and vice versa. So if there's any issues, we have two plants that we could work with now to supply the water to the city to make sure we're producing everything we can for the capacity. And hydrant flows, you got to meet fire flows. But back to your question on the chemical makeup, it's very similar between the two facilities, and using the same treatment process. And the similar chemicals that are used, which is chlorine. We use monochloramines here for disinfection, which is chlorine and ammonia combined, because Florida's, like you said when you introduced yourself, it's very hot in Florida. Well, what happens with free chlorine and hot temperatures, it dissipates very quickly. So the monochloramine is a chlorine ammonia mixture, which allows us to maintain a residual longer in the system. That way we can meet all our regulatory compliance, because we are regulated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and we have to meet certain guidelines. And we sample on a daily basis. We pull, I think it's about 70 now, bacteriological samples in the system. So, and those are all reported to DEP for system compliance.
And, the reassurance to the citizens who are on public water that we're kind of ahead of the game. What can you tell us there on, you said we could expand to another 5 million gallons?
We can expand up to 5 million gallons at the, yes.
So that kind of sets us up for growth, right?
Absolutely. And part of our long-term planning and master planning, the utility does have another area that it has identified and owns the property for an additional water plant and wastewater plant down the road. So we've identified strategic areas throughout the city. So there'll be coverage as it develops and how the stages come in on the development side.
And in my lifetime, if we ever go to sewer and water in Northport across the board, of course, we're talking millions or billions of dollars at that point to do the whole city. But we're forecasting future extremely well, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We've done master planning. We've completed our water master plan. We're in the process of doing our wastewater master plan, that's exactly what we're doing, is looking out to the future, the build out. We know population at build out is going to be around 240, 250,000 in Northport. And we're running all this into our model and our master plan to make sure we're ahead of the curve, to where we can supply all the water we need for Northport, as well as collect all the wastewater that's needed.
Is that calculation put in for the conversion from well and septic? Is that part of that equation?
Yes, we are looking at that as part of our expansion, that as septic tanks would come off a line, it is part of our master plan in the overall capacity of the utility system.
And I'm trying to think of all the questions that a citizen would have. We are not saying that septics are going to be eliminated today. We're just talking about futuristic plans, correct?
That is correct. That is, these are just future plans as it builds out. Earlier this year, the regulations for septic tanks was switched from the Department of Health to the Department of Environmental Protection. So they're looking more at the environment, and we're just trying to game plan for what could come down the line from the state, from the Department of Environmental Protection. Because in Northport, we have all the water that funnels through Northport. It comes off the big slough. We have lots of canals, and it actually ends up in the Charlotte Harbor estuary. So all our water coming through ends up into Charlotte Harbor. So that's right. The DEP is looking at that. The Department of Health looks at health and human safety, to where the Department of Environmental Protection is going to look at the environment and what impacts are happening with the environment. And we know from experience from they have the Springs Act, and they had a lot of grant funding that came through, that the water bodies were impacted from the septic tanks leaching into the ground, which was affecting all the springs. So they actually are in a conversion process of switching them all over. So we're game planning it right now. As we would say, converting over to central sewer, that right now is a long-term plan. Nothing's going to happen soon. We are looking at our first phase, and we do have a design moving forward with our first phase, which is along Southford Boulevard. But like you said, it's expensive. It does cost a lot, and we just have to strategically move forward and make sure we're hitting all our benchmarks, and we want to show that we are being proactive for the environment, for Northport. And we do have a plan in place if anything does come down the road.
So and I'm asking this, forecasting the expansion of the Toledo Blade corridor. There's a lot happening in that corridor. There's a lot of growth potential with the amount of potential apartments and everything else that's going to be added after build out. Are we at a capacity level to handle that growth?
Yes, we can handle the capacity. Right now, we currently treat about 2.5 million gallons a day at our current plant on Pan American Boulevard, which has a permitted run capacity of 7 million gallons a day. So we do have the capacity for growth already built in with that plant.
And what are we at now, right? So we have a potential growth to 7 million. What are we running now?
2.5 million gallons a day.
Yeah, so there's plenty of room there. So
yes,
take another fear factor out for our community on where they think water is going to come from with all the growth that we have coming.
Yes, we do have the capacity. They did some planning and some expansions around 2008 to start that, or right before 2008. I'm sorry, it was before the downturn in the economy, because they were anticipating at that time when things were booming that we needed to expand it, and the downturn in the economy happened. So we are expanded, and we can take the capacity needed at this point. But right now we're looking at even further down the road for the build out of Northport.
So would you say it's a 10 or 12 year build out plan, or is it more than that?
Oh, no, it's much more than that. It's, 30 to 50 years at least. I mean, it's a big long-term plan. It's not going to happen overnight. There's too many influences on how things, and
a lot of variables, right?
A lot of variables. That's correct.
And, you talked about the last economic downturn. Well, that was a variable that none of us saw coming. And we, of course, made adjustments off of that. And then are now, as you said, and as we know, we're the number 2 fastest growing city in the country, which is also scary at the same time. So if we were not ready for this growth, the panic level would be a little different in your voice, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, it would. Yes, it would not be good. Yeah, because if we weren't ready, they would pretty much, they would stop building pretty much until we can meet that capacity, and that wouldn't be good for the city, and that would definitely not be good for the economy in Northport. So we're in a prime position to thrive, and our economic development team has done a great job of actually getting out there and helping local businesses and promoting Northport, which is leads back to second fastest city growing.
Absolutely. So we talked the 7 million gallons and the 2.5 used. Is that just at the water treatment plant that's behind Winn-Dixie, or is that in totality?
No, that's just the one on Pan American Boulevard behind the Winn-Dixie there. Yes, that's just that one. The other plant is 2 million gallons a day. That one can be brought to 6 million gallons.
So we legitimately, when we were utilizing water, we were still under total capacity with running Welland Park at the same time, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And we've put relief on our system by opening that second one up. And I say relief, and this is the next question. Is there a relief factor in there where you take the pressure off of where you're putting that much water and kind of pushing the capacity?
Yes, actually that does play into the pressures and the length of the run, which is what Welland Park had 2 master lift stations that pump back to the plant on Pan American Boulevard. But the length of that run and the size of those pumps were 88 horsepower pumps. They create a lot of pressure on the line when that happens. So what happens if you have other stations pumping in, and the more those master stations run, the less chance your other stations pump in, or they're fighting each other trying to pump in, which is why it was planned out that they would hit so much of the connections, which they would then have to have a plant that they could feed up there, which we were able to downsize the pumps at those master stations because it's only pumping a mile or two to the new plant. So that does play into it. And as your pressures build, as you grow and you get pumping more in there, your pressure does build. That's one thing we watch very carefully.
And of course, the infrastructure at Welland Park is newer, so we don't forecast any major problems there for 20 to 30 years.
I'm hoping so.
And yeah, me too. So the rest of the city, where we on some sort of a maintenance program as far as our water mains themselves, to keep them updated and not in a I don't want to say a bad situation, but a situation where things start to burst, or how does that maintenance program work?
Yeah, so we have a couple maintenance programs that we do. One, we do a fire hydrant maintenance flow program where we flow test and we maintenance all the hydrants in the city. So that's done annually. So we make sure everything's operable, everything is exercised, the hydrant caps are greased, and everything is working properly on the fire hydrant. That's all, not only for utility functions, but that's for fire functions as well. So the fire department and utilities work very closely together on that. And we have a great relationship to where they help us out. They make they identify some areas too when they do their training that, hey, we need to pay a little bit of attention here. And we address those immediately if there's any issues. We also have an ongoing valve maintenance program to where we exercise the valves in the city, because we want to lessen, if there is any interruption, we want to lessen the impact of the area that is disrupted. There's a lot of construction going on. Contractors hit lines. So we want to make sure with that valve maintenance program that we actually can isolate a small area, make the repair, and then, so we're not affecting a bigger area of the city or half the city or anything like that. So that's an important maintenance aspect. We do have an ongoing program that we actually have been working on and actually we started, it was in Holiday Park, and I went to one of their HOA meetings, and they called me in and they said, hey, I got brown water. And I said, really? So I, sent some crews out. We did some flushing, did some checking. And they had brown water, and we cleared the area, and I went back to another meeting. They said, hey, we still have brown water. Well, what we realized was the old general development in the early 70s up to the early 80s, basically that 10-year period, they used galvanized service lines. So we went in and started replacing all the galvanized service lines, and it actually fixed that area of the Holiday Park. We're actually working over in the Biscayne area right now doing the same exact thing, where we're going through neighborhoods in Biscayne. Up to Ponce de Leon is the area we're working right now to replace some of those services of the older infrastructure, where we've identified some areas with galvanized lines, and we're trying to stay ahead of that.
And, having these maintenance programs in place, again, informing the citizens of prevention versus waiting for a disaster to happen. Those types of things are invaluable when it comes to citizens going with or without water, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And one of the big things, a maintenance program on the wastewater side, is our I&I program, which is inflow and infiltration. Now, this is something we have. We purchased a TV truck and a vac truck back in 2017. And so this allowed us to actually televise the gravity mains, clean them, and make proper inspections so we can make repairs, because there's contractors, they're putting in lines. Sometimes they'll bore through a pipe, or some of the old clay pipe will crack, and we can identify that to where we can do lining inside those lines. So, but the good thing is that with this equipment we purchased, we actually got a $1.6 million grant because of our I&I program to continue and make the repairs needed in the city. So, and a lot of that is, and then the rainstorms that we have, that we don't allow all that extra water into our system. So we're only pumping actually, or mostly, we keep most of it out. Can't say I'll keep it all out. I'd love to.
Right.
That's not something we can do, but we're able to maintain. We can maintain the flows, and I believe it was last year we had like 11 inches of rain one day. Had a big rain event, lots of flooding. We sent a lot of water to the plant, but we maintained everything in the sewer system and pumped it to the plant without any overflows, which is amazing. Really, it really is. For 11 inches of rain, streets underwater.
All right, so let's talk about that for a little bit, because we've down south, we've heard of accidental sewage spills into the Gulf, along the Fort Myers Beach, prior to Fort Myers Beach, but we just had a major flood, and you're talking about controlling that and then getting a grant. How does the grant and the controlling did that play hand in hand because we were good at it and we got that grant, or what was that grant based on?
The grant was based on we have an ongoing maintenance program. We are proactively addressing issues or trying to find the issues that need repair, and we've successfully identified areas that, hey, we need a little bit of attention here, applied for grant funding, and that was awarded because we were able to show the work. We had video footage, and with the equipment we got, it allows us to tell the story to the state and say, this is where we're at, this is what we have, we'd love to apply for some of your funding. And that's where we were awarded the funding on that.
So it was really forward thinking as far as the grant goes, and what information you had to supply to actually obtain the grant.
Yes. It was we've had, when I came on in 2015, and our previous director, Rick Newkirk, he used to tell the story when we were going to purchase the actual TV equipment, which is, it's not cheap equipment. It costs about $800,000. I'm sorry, no, that was the Mack truck cost $800,000. The TV truck cost about $200,000, and it has a special robotic camera, does all kinds of 3D laser profiling and everything of the pipes. But he used to joke that the equipment we had at the time was in a trailer, and he equated it to sending a gerbil down the pipe with a flashlight and a Polaroid camera. That technology has come a long way, that we need to get with the times, and it's proven itself, because the technology that's out there today, the video footage, the clarity of the cameras, the reports that it can print out, it tells its own story, and it makes it easier to file and ask for the grant funding that's out there.
Well, we're all concerned about the quality of water, the quality of the environment, based on the raw sewage that gets pumped through our city lines. The technology, you're right, has changed, but I think the most important thing that we should be kind of pounding our chest about is that we're on our game. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would agree that, we're constantly looking out into the future. we're looking at ways how we can do better, what we can do better. I can tell you our biggest strength in utility is our staff. We have experienced people and we rely on them, and we want their input. When they're out in the field, what can we do to make your job better? What can we do to help you? And they provide that feedback, and we allow them to network with surrounding communities. So they built that relationship, and they actually, we bounce back and forth and help each other out. We work with Sarasota County, we work with Charlotte County. If they have issues with parts and they can't get them, we give them parts and they reorder them, and that's how we work. But it's all a part of networking and helping each other out. And when somebody finds something new and says, "Hey, this is interesting, you should look at it," we look at it. If it's successful, and we weigh out those options, and we want to do what's best for the citizens of Northport. So, the technology is something we have to keep up on, and we have to stay abreast to what's out there and how we can make the jobs easier. Because it's always been said, you're going to do more with less.
100%. It's always that way. And, there's something you brought up, and I'm going to circle back to the truck for a second, because the truck you said is 200,000, right?
That's correct.
So the truck helped us get the grant.
Yes, it did.
The last time I checked, grant isn't a payment back. It's a grant money. It's free money. If you apply and get it. So we spent 200,000. How much was the grant worth?
It was 1.6 million.
Gee, I would spend 200,000.
That's a good return on investment.
Every single day of the week. And we don't hear these stories clearly enough to understand what we're talking about, because I'll promise you, when you went to purchase that truck, or whoever went to purchase that truck, there were people saying, we don't need the truck.
Yeah. I mean, there's always people that, and that's where we have to be forward thinking, and we have to look down the road, and we have to know what's going on in our surroundings. And at the state level is very important, because if there's funding available, if you can create, the reporting that's required for that, yep, it's going to cost you a little bit up front, but you can get that back in return. And that's where we have to stay current with what's going on in our state.
Well, and did we sell the gerbil?
Yeah, we definitely did. Put that on the surplus.
That's awesome. It's truly technology. And Chuck English said, no grant is free. We all have tenets and responsibilities. We do, but grant money is different than a loan towards the city. While it is still tax dollars in a different usage,
correct.
It's fundamentally promising for any city to try to get grants over a loan type scenario, or a tax dollar incentive onto the taxpayers. Correct? Yes.
It's yeah, I agree with Chuck. Nothing's free. Nothing.
No, it's never free. I 100% agree with Chuck.
It's just a different revenue source, which doesn't affect the ratepayers of Northport Utilities. Is really what we're able to upgrade, improve, and maintain the infrastructure without affecting the ratepayers. Because if we had to go out and come up with $1.6 million,
that's different.
That's a different story. And that's either going to take a long time budgeting and saving to get there, or you have to affect the rates of the utility to get the money in a several year period as well. So the grant funding is pretty quick, actually, to where you can start a project within 2 years.
Nice. So you've been here 9.5 years, correct?
Yes.
So at 9.5 years, where were you prior?
Prior to this, I was at DeSoto County. I was the maintenance. I was over maintenance. I was a water plant chief operator and water system supervisor there. So I kind of bounced back and forth. I do have a water treatment license. And And prior to that, I was a field supervisor for eight and a half years with Charlotte County.
So you've got vast local knowledge.
21 years.
And that vast local knowledge, how valuable is that in what we're doing? Now, DeSoto is still planning their area a little slower than what we are, but they're still planning. But what knowledge did and are you bringing into our area with the growth that we're handling now, because you've built these relationships with both of those counties?
Yeah, and working there, especially Charlotte County, Northport and Charlotte County, both general development communities, both put in the same infrastructure, the same pipes. It was all developed the same. I mean, it was all one area at one time. So 8.5 years as a field supervisor down there, really got to understand the systems, how they're laid out, kind of what works in the communities and what doesn't work, what materials are commonly used and what we can improve, and areas to identify. So that kind of experience with just knowing the region, knowing the water, I just Peace River. I mean, all of us use Peace River water as well. We have a regional interconnect, or regional water supply authority with Peace River, and Charlotte County uses them, DeSoto County uses them, Northport, Punta Gorda, Sarasota County, Manatee County. It's a huge interconnect system, and we're able to wheel water in any direction in multiple facets to where, Hurricane Charlie, going back to 2004, City of Northport provided water to Charlotte County during Hurricane Charlie. Wow. And Peace River went down, and we actually pumped water from our water treatment plant through Hillsborough Booster Station into Charlotte County. So those are interconnects we have. During Hurricane Ian, we actually had to open up our interconnect with Sarasota County and start feeding water into our ground storage tank in Welland Park to start building pressure there. So, I mean, these interconnects are very important as well. And knowing the region, knowing the players, like I said, I've worked with Peace River for 21 years. So,
yep. Well, it's a valuable relationship that you have there, and the knowledge base that you bring into Northport. You talked about how great we're handling things. It's because we have people with experience doing the right things and having the forward thinking 50 years out to keep us moving in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing we're lucky here in Northport is our tenured employees. We have, I want to say, let me think here for just a second. I know we got about 6 of them that have close to 20 years in this utility. So you talk about, where all the skeletons are buried and how things actually work. And when I say we run the system very smoothly, it's because, we have the leadership of those field staff that have been here, over 20 years that know, hey, we need to turn that valve in this situation. And no, we need to go over here and start here instead of over here. We got to listen, and we got to know we got to listen to those that are the expertise in the field to make sure we're maintaining everything in the system.
So Chuck has another question, and it pertains to water and sewer to the Sumter and 75 exchange or interchange. Do you know when that's supposed to be scheduled, or if it is?
Oh, it's under construction right now. Substantial completion is February 1st, 2024, with the final completion of March 1st, 2024.
Nice.
I just have to have that note on my computer right in front of me.
Nice. See, that computer is working today. So, you talked about 20 years, like four or five people there at 20 years. Are we doing anything to engage with a newer employee who is going to, at some point, not today, but at some point, have to carry the brunt of the knowledge forward? Are we kind of working that way through? I know that we're kind of progressive on everything else, but that knowledge base seems to get lost sometimes.
Actually, we've been working with economic development to get into our, technical colleges and even the high schools to even talk about the industry we're in, to talk about what we do, because not everybody wants to go to college, and the skills trades are not here in this country anymore like they used to be.
Right.
Which, we do have a curriculum we were working on for lift station maintenance, and we do go to career fairs. I went to 2 of them at Northport High School, where I actually had one of the students came up to me and said, "Oh no, I don't want to do what you do. I want to be an electrician." And I said, "Well, we deal with electricity every day up to 480 volts." I said, "We have step down capacitors, we have generators, we deal with electricity on a daily basis." And I started to explain how we were dealing with electricity. And he says, "Oh, I didn't realize you guys did that." So it's just a matter of putting that information out there, and letting them know that this is a great career to have in utilities. And I got into the industry from my dad. I was an Army brat. My dad did 24 years in the Army. He retired down here in Florida, and I was an auto mechanic for a while, and I worked at Parker Hannifin. I ran CNC machines. I did a lot of mechanical stuff. And my dad said, "Son, you should get into water, because people can't live without water." And I said, "Hey, you're right, Dad." I said, "That's a true statement." I said, so that's what brought me into the industry, is just my dad telling me, get in the water industry because people can't live without water. And I love what I do. I love it. I love this community. My daughter lives in Northport. My grandkids live here in Northport. I just, it's a great community. I love working here. It's just, and the growth is, it's something new, but I think we're ready for it. And I'm excited for what has to come. And I think we have the right planning tools in place to move forward.
Well, it sounds like the chaos has been eliminated because the preparation was done.
Correct. Yes, we constantly plan and project, and as we say, we like to look into the crystal ball. That really isn't real, but you look at trends, you look at industry trends, you look at the economy. There's a lot of factors to look at, but you have to continually stay on top of that, and do what's best in the community as we move forward.
And keeping those things in mind, the pride of, and I'm just going to use it, the pride of public works. I've been interviewing public works now for about 4 years, and there's a pride factor that every department over there carries. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. That's and we're public servants, and we want to be able to help. We want to engage, and we want to help the community. That's why we're here. We don't come here because we think we're going to retire and be rich. That's the honest truth. But we want to be involved in the community. We want to help others. Everybody plays a huge part in that, and that it's just and like I said, I've worked in several different areas, and Northport is awesome. Northport is great to work for. It's a great place to be. I love being out in the community. I go to HOA meetings. I'll talk to anybody that wants to talk, really. And if we want to talk about water and sewer, let's talk about it.
And I'm glad that you're on talking about it too, because first off, through this, we've already learned our capacities, which I don't think anybody, maybe Chuck, knew our capacities, and the commissioners who are currently out there. But as far as how water moves and different things, you said that we can send water from one water treatment plant to the other. Well, that's just another protection for the citizens, isn't it? In case something.
Absolutely. We build in redundancies with whatever we do because we want to lessen the impact of the community as a whole. Same, our lift stations, wastewater plant, it's a redundancy that we build in, because you can't rely on one sole source, because if that goes down or something happens to that, you can't be put in that situation as you run a public system.
And public systems are definitely governed a little different out there in this world. If we were to have a flow issue with a sewer line, there's contamination issues with soil, right? At some point,
Mm-hmm.
are those regulated differently too when we have to go do cleanup?
No, it's regulated through the Department of Environmental Protection. There's different processes to go through and remediation methods that we have to work through. And typically you do everything possible not to get to that point, because you don't want Big Brother, so to say, standing over your shoulder, pointing a finger down to do this, do this, do this.
And
so that's what we do.
There, go ahead. No, I love it, because that was kind of, you went down that path with me, because the preemptive behavior is much more cost effective than not having that in place, because you're right. Big Brother would love to scoop in and tell us exactly how to handle that.
Absolutely. And they'll charge you a nice fee with that, a nice consent order on top of it. And they're going to charge you a fine and tell you to fix it, and you're going to have to pay for all the fixes anyway. So, one of my sayings that I love is do it right the first time. Let's do it right the first time. If we see an issue, we see a problem, let's fix the problem. Let's fix the problem right. Let's do it the right way.
Well, and I think the right way is cost effective.
In the long term, it is.
It is, because your budget, and we'll talk about budget because we've got budget coming up here soon, but your budget that you guys run, it stays pretty tight to what you project, right? Because you have all these plans in play.
That is correct. We do have a tight budget. We're an enterprise fund, so the utilities, whatever the utilities has coming in, goes invested right back into the utilities infrastructure. So it's a long-term planning. We have stuff, we have a 5-year plan. We have a 10-year plan. We have projects. So what we have to do is, with these long-term plans, is as the budgets go through, we have to make sure we're funding a little bit each time, because when the time comes for a replacement, we have to make sure the money is available for that. Right. So it is a balancing game, and we have to be very careful with the money and how we're spending it. And sometimes you have things that are unpredictable that happen, such as, Hurricane Ian wiping out, a couple bridge crossings, which took out, a 16-inch water main. We had to replace the 16-inch water main so we kind of constantly have to watch those numbers, and we have to figure out how we're going to pay for all of this and manage it.
So within Public Works, with doing water control and sewer controls during Ian, how would you grade Northport on how we dealt with that?
I would say an A+. And I only say that because, really, with the devastation we've had and the streets that were flooded, we had everything back up and running in 3 days. And just to try to find a leak where there's 3 feet of water on the street and isolate areas down, and the dedicated staff is really what it comes down to. Our utility staff is top notch, well trained, and they're dedicated to this community and the success of the utility and the city as a whole.
Chuck has another line. Most of the individuals that serve our community are not just employees, but residents and the same trails and tribulations of all of us.
That is true.
100%.
That is true. Yes, we probably 85%, maybe even a little bit more, are city of Northport residents that are working here at the utilities.
Well, and that's why I brought in the pride factor seriously, because the amount of effort that goes in to having a well-run public works department, it speaks volumes when we don't hear. And trust me, if we were bad, it would be all over the news.
Yes, it will be.
And
That's where we don't want to be.
It's exactly, that's my point, is that, when you sit back and you really start paying attention to the chest pounding moments that we all enjoy in our city, we have a lot to be proud of. I use the word pride with you, and I use the word proud with the rest of us, because there is something to be said with a well-run machine, and your efficiencies are higher, your repair costs are down, you're focused on outcome and prevention versus catastrophe and oh my god moments.
Yes, and we're always looking for that continuous improvement.
Right.
We're actually revamping and really diving into asset management at a bigger, higher level than we've ever been before, just for those efficiencies. Yeah, we can run the system, and yeah, we're doing good, but we can always get better, and we can always improve, and we want to see that continuous improvement. So we're diving into a huge asset management program at a really high level, which, your greatest asset are your employees. So you got to start there. You got to start with your training. You got to start with the development. And not only that is have a plan and have a succession plan of it, that, you want to groom everybody to come up, and it shouldn't skip a beat. It really should just be a smooth list. If somebody retires, that's great. Congratulations to them. But we're still here at the city, still operating, still doing what we do. And congratulations to them for retiring. You shouldn't feel like, oh man, they're retiring. What are we going to do now? You don't want that. That's and that's all what we're really focused in on that. And we want to, build on the plans we have now.
Do we do, and this is a spinoff of Chuck's question, but do we have a comprehensive plan for testing of the water and doing all those types of things?
Yes, we have regulatory compliance that we are required to sample. We're required to sample the groundwater, surface water. That we actually, because we pull off surface water, we work with Moat Marine. We actually pull samples and do monitoring of the water all the way out the Myakkahatchee Creek, past the plant, to make sure we're not disrupting the environment. So there's a lot of requirements that we have, and that we have our Florida Administrative Code that we follow as far as a public supply water system. And anybody can go out there, and if they're ever bored, they can read 62555 Florida Administrative Code and 62550. And that tells you all of the operation, maintenance, reporting requirements, staffing requirements. That is basically how we operate as a public water system and what our requirements are on a daily basis.
And Chuck is like, are we hitting the minimum standards? Or are we above that?
We are typically above that. It all depends on what we're sampling and how we're sampling it. We go through, they call it it just slipped my mind. Basically every few years, UCMR, uncontaminated monitoring rule, and they have tiers. So basically every 2 to 3 years, DEP comes out and says, hey, we want you to start testing for this. Well, the new one coming out is PFAS and PFAS. So those are requirements coming up that we have to wait for them to write the rule, because we need to know what the maximum contaminant level is, and we need to know what the contaminant level goal is, so we know how to treat the water to make sure we can't go over the MCL, the maximum contaminant level, and you want to reach their goal that they set. They'll set a goal for you to maintain a certain level in the system. So, every 2 to 3 years, they come up with a new, hey, we want you to start sampling this, and we want you to sample this. And I can tell you, we really dig down into what we're sampling in the waters.
And so I'm going to ask this because I know it's a hot button for Chuck, and I'm counting on your expertise and your vast knowledge of everyone around us. But our standard of checking water and soil samples and all those things, we're not worse than anybody else around us, are we?
Not to my knowledge on that. I don't think so.
I mean,
that's more of
holding a good standard, but is there anybody out there who's like over and beyond the standard set by the federal government?
Well, I mean, are we talking about groundwater, treated water, or are we talking about just surface water through the canals? Because that's where gets.
No pun intended, but I don't want it to get mucky. But I think Chuck, I think leans more towards. He may even be talking both, but I think he's leaning more towards ground soil.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer, because that is run through our stormwater management system. Elizabeth Wong is over our stormwater management, and they do all the soil sampling and water sampling upstream on the surface water throughout the canal system. That is all controlled through it was the Road and Drainage District. It used to be the Water Controls District. Now it's the Road and Drainage District, which is led with the stormwater manager, Elizabeth Wong.
So here's the beauty is we just defined that moment between the two, because we do use our canals for drinking water purposes, correct?
Yes, we do.
And the importance of you working with Elizabeth upstream, there's got to be some good communication there too, right?
Yes, and we do cooperate and help Elizabeth with some of those samplings that she does. And we have employees that will go out and help with sampling and stuff like that. And we do get the reports back. She shares the results. We take the water in at the water treatment plant, and we test it at what's coming in. So we see what we have, the makeup of the water. We test the alkalinity, the pH, the color, turbidity. There's a whole lot of things we test as the water comes in, but we also have our standards, which we know we have to meet. So how are we going to treat this to meet those standards? So that's our goal, is we know we have to bring whatever's in the water to a certain standard and make sure we're exceeding those standards.
That's awesome. Well, I hate to do this, but I can't believe we blew through 55 minutes that quick.
Has it been that long?
We're at 53:37 right now. So I want to appreciate you being part of the show, podcast, and radio show, and I hope you didn't mind the gauntlet too much.
Oh, no, it was just fine. Like I said, if we want to talk about water, wastewater utilities, I'm all for it. We could talk anytime.
Well, I appreciate your time, and thank everybody at City Hall, and keep up the good job. And just know you're appreciated. And I love the fact that you were able to share the vast knowledge we have on keeping our city waters drinking and moving and forecasting out for the future, which is very bright for Northport.
Yes, it is. And thank you, John. I do appreciate it.
All
It's
right.
been
Have a
really
great day.
fun. Thank
We'll
you.
talk. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for watching. This is John Rollins with Drill Talk Radio saying thanks and have a great day. Bye bye now.